Hello everyone, and welcome back to the layout. Today we're going to be doing our final video in the freight cars of the Ohio and West Virginia division of Conrail's tour here. We're going to be taking a look at cabooses as well as maintenance of way cars, ballast cars, etc. today. So this is going to be all the stuff that's left that didn't fit into another video. So we're going to go ahead and start off with cabooses first. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as we take a look at some of these freight cars here on Conrail's Ohio and West Virginia division. Alright, so our first caboose here we're going to be taking a look at is actually an N7 caboose. This is a tangent model. As you guys can tell, it's got a lot of really great fine detail on it. Technically, these cars would have been retired sometime in the late 80s, I believe. They didn't actually make it into the late 90s like I'm modeling, but when Tangent released this model and I saw the pictures of it, it's just such a beautiful looking, well-detailed model. I had to pick one up for the layout, so this one, as you guys can tell, I really went a little bit heavy with the weathering. I did a pretty heavy fade, as well as a bunch of rust going on, little rust spots and streaks, etc., just to kind of make it look like a car that escaped retirement and is still in use here in the late 90s, at least on my layout. So really nice car. It's got working marker lights and stuff, which I don't use because you gotta turn them on and off with a wand and all that stuff, but just a really nice looking car, and kind of a good example, in my opinion, of a car that when the detail works really nice on it, the weathering you don't have to get too wild and be too super fancy with to have a really good looking car. Alright, so next up here we have an N9 caboose, I believe is what these are. It's a transfer caboose, and these are kind of special to me because these were what I tended to see as a kid growing up here in Northeast Ohio. These would be what they put on the locals, etc. And this particular car is actually one of the old New Jersey custom brass models. You can still find them on eBay unpainted. This is one I painted and decaled and weathered. Obviously not my finest weathering work. This one was done, geez, probably 4 or 5 years ago at least now. And over time I've went through and I've added some, got a broom going on there, got a little cooler, just, some little details to kind of bring it to life a little bit. Got the flag here too, and just a really nice looking car. It'd be cool if somebody would release these in HO scale today out of plastic. Would be really nice to have some more of these. One of my favorite cabooses that you can really see going down the rails, and overall a neat car. Reason I chose the number 18285 is because as I've mentioned in other videos and other time in the past, I'm trying to put together freight cars and locomotives that technically operated in my area growing up. It's kind of hard to find pictures of and stuff, so this caboose seemed to hang around my area from the photos I found, so that was the reason I chose that number and have this model of it here. Alright, and here we have the Conrail 18203, another N9 caboose. This is again another New Jersey custom brass car, and this would be the first one of these I did originally a few years back. This is one that I have pictures of in my local yard growing up. Just a really cool car, and something I really had to have here on the layout. As you guys can tell, the weathering's a bit rough on it. This is back when I had no idea what I was doing, and I was just trying to figure things out. And trying to make things look close. I could do much better nowadays, but I'm not going to strip this and repaint it because it's kind of it's been around for almost 5 years now, and it was on I think this is one of the first cabooses I built when I built the layout over here. So this really neat one that I really enjoy. And again, I hope somebody comes out with these in HO scale. Hopefully somebody, if any manufacturer's watching, that's a little hint, you know, come out with these, we'll buy a bunch of them. But really cool car, and one that stays hooked to the 8204 and the 8200. It's kind of those units specific caboose that I keep hooked up to them. So really cool one. All right, so now we're over here by our caboose shop, and we're going to take a look at the couple of cabooses that are sitting over here right now. This is the 24534. I don't recall exactly what Conrail class that is. I'm pretty bad with cabooses. I don't really, it's hard for me to remember what they all exactly are, but this started off as an undecorated Walthers car that I painted and decaled and numbered. Again, this is another one that was local to me. So, at least in the photos, it was local, so hopefully it actually was. But either way, just a simple, easy build I did. I think I did this 2 or 3 years ago. This one technically would be going with the, oh gosh, what units does this go with? It goes with the 7936 and the 7670, but both those locomotives are currently off the layout, so it's over here at the caboose shop for right now. Just kind of place to put it at, hold me over till I get those units back up and running and here on the layout. All right, and here we have another Walthers bay window caboose. This one in particular is an N21. This is the 21313. This is again another local caboose. This one I think floated around the Cleveland area, and if I'm not mistaken, still is to this day. It's been repainted in Conrail paint by Norfolk Southern, and really neat to still see floating around. But this, I did this as the kind of the late 90s version where the paint's kind of faded, but it has this weird, you know, like where they repainted around the bay window, but everything else is kind of faded a little bit and got like the rust lines going down and stuff. And just a really cool, neat build. I replaced the coupler boxes on this with ones from Details West, and I also put this, as you can see, it's kind of a little loose here, the see-through step grading on it as well. You know, not a perfect build, but you know, the only way you can learn how to do this stuff is to try it, and sometimes it comes out good, sometimes it doesn't. But overall, this car I think looks great, and is one that I like to mix in with trains, kind of my more recent work. So a really neat bay window caboose to add some variety here. All right, so our last two cabooses are actually going to be N20 cabooses, which are the extended vision ones. These are former Reading cars that went to Conrail. And this particular one I weathered based off a prototype photo. I believe this was an undecorated Atlas car when I got it, if I'm not mistaken, but it may have been painted Conrail. I can't quite remember. This one I did 2 or 3 years ago at least now. And yeah, I just did the little styrene pieces over the windows to blank them out like the real cars had, and put some windshield wipers on there and stuff just to add a little bit of variety. But this car in the prototype photos I saw had this like spots where the paint was all patched at random down here along the bottom, and it just looked neat. So I went ahead and did my best rendition of it at the time. I think I could do a little better nowadays, but still an interesting car and a neat one, and one I enjoy kind of putting in different places, and kind of nice to have these extended vision cabooses because I didn't see these growing up, but now that I've seen them in videos and pictures, etc., it's kind of neat to kind of have them around and mix them in a little bit. All right, now not to get too far ahead of ourselves because we still have one more caboose left to go, but while I'm over here at the caboose shop with the camera set up, I'd like to go ahead and get this specific car here. This is for more of a maintenance away car, but this is a flat car I custom built from a Bowser flat car to have these wheels on it. And what I did was I took a Bowser car and I glued rails to the top, and I pretty much made spare pieces of rail into like a holder for these wheels. And if you look very closely in between each wheel, you'll see a little triangular piece of styrene I cut to hold the wheels in place. Now this isn't based off of one particular prototype or anything. It was more or less I had a Bowser car that was, I think it was a Pennsylvania one that I wanted to do something with, but I didn't want to just paint it maintenance away gray because I have a boatload of those in Conrail already. And I decided to kind of turn it into a bit of a project here, and ended up coming out pretty neat. Again, it's not, you know, anywhere near prototypically correct, but for using extra parts and pieces I had laying around, I think it turned out pretty good. These are all just plastic wheels from different freight cars over the years that I've had laying around that I always kept for some reason, and I was painting them rusty orange and threw them on there. So overall, a neat car. One, I'd like to build a few more of these eventually once I could get a little bit better detail shots of the tops of the cars, etc., to be able to scratch build everything out of styrene. But for now, just a cool one to have here on the layout. Alright, so here we have an N11 caboose, and this is another transfer style caboose. Now, you guys are probably looking at this and saying, man, Steve, is your camera messed up or is that car screwed up? Oh yeah, see this this whole end here is kind of warped. So this is a model that I don't believe's ever been produced in HO scale other than by 3D printed by CMR products. And when I saw these come out, naturally, you know, had to order two of them just for the heck of it. And this is the first one I've built, and is the only one right now, because the other one I still haven't even started on or done anything with, because I was a bit frustrated when I cut the car out of like the 3D printing shell thing, and just this whole end of the car is just like warped upwards, and it just kind of annoyed me pretty bad. So I haven't messed with the other one yet. It didn't look like the other one was warped, but needless to say, it was frustrating. But it was kind of like one of those things where it's like, well, I mean, it doesn't look that great. It looks kind of screwed up. But maybe down the road, I might turn it into like a wrecked car kind of thing. But for now, it's an N11 and it's on the way out until somebody makes something better. So just got to kind of live with it and hope that eventually somebody will actually produce these, and I could use this as a scrap car essentially. But otherwise, the biggest hassle with these cars for anybody that's thinking about getting them is cutting them out of their goofy sprue thing they come in from the 3D printing process. And I'd like to note as well that this car was extremely light, so I chose a number where I could plate over the windows, because I had to fill this car up with BBs just to get it to be close to NMRI weight. I don't know if it actually ever made it to that, but the only way you could access the inside of the car is through the windows. So filling it up with BBs and all that, it was a bit of a hassle. I wish they would have done these in like 2 pieces so that they would have been a little bit easier to assemble. But either way, it's one of them cars where, you know, I like having an N11 because it's another different kind of car I can run, so that I'm not just running the same exact styles over and over again. I just wish this one came out better, but what are you going to do? It's the only option I had, the only option I know of to get one of these, so gotta do what you gotta do. Alright, I may have lied a little bit here. There's actually 2 more cabooses, not just one, but this is going to be the last caboose right here. This is another Atlas N20 caboose. This was another custom build. I kind of talked about this one a pretty good bit in the locomotive tour, so I won't go too far into it here. But this is the most recent caboose I've done. Probably my favorite by a long shot, because the weathering on this one really came out good. And I did a lot of detail work on this one, all the cutting out the steps and putting the see-through steps, and then adding the Details West coupler box, as well as a cut lever, which I normally don't do, and an air hose, and just a lot of work went into this car, and I'm very happy with how it turned out, and definitely by far probably my favorite caboose I've done yet. So that's going to be it for the cabooses. Now let's move on to the boatload of maintenance away cars I have sitting around here. Alright, so first up here is a custom decaled Bowser ballast hopper. Naturally, like most things in model railroading, I had built a bunch of ballast hoppers and kit bashed them, and then of course Bowser came out with these, so naturally I ordered a couple of them. This is one of the ones that I decaled myself and then did the weathering job on it. Just kind of went for a pretty rough look to it. These were done, gosh, I think 3-4 years ago now, so not my best weathering, but either way, a neat looking car. Got to have some variety in our ballast train, as you guys will see. There's only a handful of the cars out right now, but you know, a little bit of something there. And then this car here, this is one of the ones I kit bashed. If my memory serves, I used, I can't remember for sure, but I want to say I used a It was either an Atlas or a Roundhouse car. I can't totally remember exactly which, but has the ballast doors from Circus City on the bottom of it. That's who I got those from. And just to, you know, went for the early Conrail repaint where they painted them this orangish yellow, like Penn Central painted everything, and you know, the early kind of lettering and all that, and just went to town with the rust and grime on it. Again, not my best weathering, but I think it looks pretty decent for what it is. It was, you know, just a kit bash build I did out of some cheapo cars I had, and I think it came out pretty decent. And I also like to note that all of these ballast loads are all just the scenery, scrap pieces of scenery foam that I took ballast and glued to it, so kind of a neat one. Now, this car in particular here, I don't remember if I put the ballast doors on this one or not, because I also picked up a lot of ballast hoppers that somebody was building on eBay and went ahead and finished them off. And this is one of them right here. Now this was, again, some of my earlier weathering, but I really, really liked how this one came out with like the little rust spots and stuff on the side where it just really came out good. I can't quite remember. I think I did this with acrylics, but I'm not 100% sure. But either way, a really, really neat car. And then on to our next one here. This is actually one of the first ballast cars I ever had right here. I believe it might actually be the first, for that matter. I bought a pair of them on eBay way back when. Somebody had them up for sale before I built any of mine. And just really, really cool looking car. I did the oil paint weathering on this one, and I'm very happy with how it came out. This is kind of when I kind of knew what I was doing with the oil paint, but didn't totally know. But I think the results speak for itself on this one. It really came out nice. Alright, so these next two are two more of the cars that I picked up in a lot off of eBay, ones that weren't complete and finished. Again, these ones I finished, they already had the ballast doors on them, so I don't really know the whole story on them, but they were halfway done. They just weren't painted and decaled and all that, so weathering on this one's kind of, but, you know, it is what it is. At the end of the day, when you have a train of 30 ballast hoppers, they don't all have to be, you know, 5-star 100% weathering cars. And I guess this is more of a reflection back of when I didn't, you know, was kind of learning weathering and didn't know what I was doing. So I keep it out just, you know, as kind of a reminder that, you know, I've come a little bit of a ways and things. And then here we have another, you know, earlier one, same as the last one, and got a little bit of a rusty feel to this one. This one's got the reporting marks in the middle, whereas the other one had them down here more towards the end. So kind of trying to have a little bit of variety in the train of ballast hoppers. Now these next two are two that I did, that I started off with covered hoppers and I cut them up and got all crazy with them. And this one, when I was doing these, I kind of had a thing for these Conrail cars that still had the Penn Central logo but were patched over to Conrail and renumbered, so I chose two numbers from that. This exact car here shows a little bit of the old CR Steve experiments that failed, is what I'd like to call this. And here we could see where I tried to cut out all the stirrups here on the side that were molded and replace them with grab irons to rather mixed results. They don't look good, but at the same time, I'm glad I tried it because now I at least know. I also added stirrups to these, and, you know, or I did all the grab irons. And then you can see down here, I tried to put some finer wire detail in there, and that didn't work out so great. But what are you gonna do? The only way you learn things in modeling is by trying and failing. That's the reality of it to any of you out there watching. And, you know, at the very least, if you try and fail, at least you could probably learn from your screw-ups and next time hopefully get it right. As we'll see with this car, where I didn't even try to do that. Did this one at the same time. I learned my lesson with that first one and said, okay, you know what? I'll leave this wonky grab iron molded nonsense that looks a little bit cruddy, because it's better than me trying to drill out all that and screwing that all up. So again, another Penn Central logo car that has the Conrail numbering on it, and again, very, very rusty. These cars started off as like a really bright yellow, and I just weathered the snot out of them. I think this might be oil paint, but I don't quite remember because I did these 4 or 5 years ago now. And next up, we just have a plain Jane one from the half-finished eBay set. Just plain Jane, nothing to see here, just regular old car. And last but not least, another one of my more favored ones from the eBay build. This one has this was all done with acrylic paints, just kind of, you know, coming in with one color and wiping it off, and then kind of coming back down the side road, making these rust lines. But overall, pretty neat. But these are just a sampling of what I have for ballast cars. Any of you that have been around the channel know and have seen my long ballast train. Just half of it's off the layout right now because it's too cumbersome to have it all out at once. So I put some away and I leave a few out for when I feel like running some ballast cars. So next up, we're going to dive into all the oddball maintenance away cars I've built. All right, so first up on our maintenance away cars here, we actually have a scale test car. And I can't recall exactly who I bought this from. I just remember buying it, but it was a resin molded car that was pretty rough and crude, and I just went ahead and added some grab irons and decaled it, put the little grab iron over there and stuff. Not an incredible looking car, but at the end of the day, it's a scale test car, so it doesn't need to be too fancy. Just something to throw into trains here and there that'll look interesting and kind of bring a little just a little spice to the trains, having something different. So this, again, is another car that you pretty much have to either get somebody to cast in resin or 3D print because nobody's sold these yet. So a neat car, but, you know, one I wish to upgrade eventually when something better comes along. All right, so here we have the first of a pair of really, really neat cars. These are both going to be Bowser flat cars that I don't know when Bowser did them, but they have these little side pieces here that go in that are all decaled up and have all the proper information on them and stuff. And I picked them up on eBay used a few years ago. They didn't have boxes or anything, but they looked really neat. And what I ended up doing was taking and just gluing rails, again, spare rails to the top of them. And for this particular car, I went ahead and built this kit from Custom Finishings for this little tie handler here. Now, this was a real challenge to build this little guy. I am not really, you know, very good with building things like that out of metal and doing that and doing all the little detail painting, all that crazy stuff. But I did this, I want to say in 2021, the summer of 2021, I did these two cars, and I was pretty nervous doing these. I did this tie handler first just to kind of get an idea how it all went together and how to do these white metal kits, because I'd never done them before. I never knew anything about them, and they're always kind of intimidating to me because they're very involved as far as doing all the cleanup on everything and getting everything to fit, and you gotta CA glue it all together. But I'm very glad I did, because this is probably one of my favorite cars to have as far as maintenance away goes. And then we'll go ahead and move our cars up a little bit here, and we have this I don't remember what the heck this is, what in the heck it's called, but this was the bigger of the two builds here. The car is the same as the other one, but this was kind of a pretty wild one to do with these hoses and stuff. I didn't put all of the little wire hoses and stuff on there that there should be, but I put enough of them on there that it looked decent without having to rip my hair out, because I don't have much patience for trying to get little hoses through little holes and all that stuff. It's not really my forte, but I'm glad I did it. And anybody out there that's thinking about doing these, go for it. They are challenging, but if you take your time, you can do them. It's just, you got to take your time and go into it with the attitude that, you know, it might not be perfect, but it'll come out pretty good if you take your time and put good effort into it. Now, here we have a custom-built Tangent G43. This one was built from a kit and custom decaled. This one I'm using to fill up with ties here, but this is just your basic maintenance of way gondola, really. One I found prototype photos of and naturally ended up having to build once I saw the photos, so a neat car. The only thing I don't care for about it is I used the decals I could pretty much whatever decals I can make work. So the decals aren't 100% correct, which most of them aren't in the maintenance away fleet. But if I get close, that's good enough for the time being. Hopefully, Tangent will do some of these eventually in a future run or something, or maybe more photos of these G43 cars and maintenance away surface will come up. So that way more could be done. But either way, a neat one, and one I'm proud to have here on the layout. Alright, and here we have yet another car in tie service. This is a G46 car that I kit bashed using a Walthers car. This one was done, gosh, 5 or 6 years ago. This was one of the first cars I did when I built the layout over here. And for this car, what I did was I started off with the standard Walthers gondola for these, and I took, and these have like an extra, have 2 ribs down here. Well, I shaved one off, shaved them both off, and whatever one was better, I went ahead and centered to make this look a little bit more correct. I would do it a little bit different nowadays. I'd probably actually put some sheet styrene in down here to cover up where it's a little bit rough from getting it off, but for what it is and for the time I did it, I'm happy with it. And one of 2 of these cars I have here on the layout. We'll be showing another one here in a second, but this one's full of old ties. These are just literal ties from track, so nothing too fancy. But next up here we have yet another G43 car, because any of you that have been following this series know I have a problem with buying tangent G43s. And this again is one that I found pictures of and went ahead and had to decal and paint from an undecorated kit. So a neat looking car. And then last but certainly not least, we have yet another G43. This one was again built from a kit. And this one's got some ties and some spike pails on skids in it. And this one's kind of one of probably my favorite of the 3 I did, because it has these plates on the side of it. I just like the G43s with the plates on them. I find them interesting because every one of them's a little bit different, and just kind of something neat to look at. So really, really cool cars. And again, I hope there's more photos of G43s that'll come out in time that we could see more numbers and I could build more of them. All right, so next up here I have a little bit of a 2-parter, as you guys can probably tell from the photos here, but or from the what you can see here in the camera. But this first car here is a Athearn mill gondola, and I've kind of custom done it here to be the kind of like backup car for the Walthers crane that we'll be showing here in a minute. But this just has pieces of scrap rail in it. Kind of get a little bit of a view of that there, and the magnet, of course, for the crane sitting in there. But I did this car probably, it had been 6 years ago or so now. Yeah, I just started off with a basic Conrail mill gondola, and then I got a little wild with the soldering iron, trying to bow the sides out and bow the edges, and I kind of learned that that doesn't really look that good. So this is the only car I did that with. But you know, I figured, you know what, I managed to bow the whole middle in on the car and stuff, so it looks like a beat up gondola, and that's what you kind of want for maintenance away service. So either way, a good one. And then here, if I can get it to stay on the rails, which I don't think I'll be able to, but we'll try, is one of these Walthers American cranes here. And this is the only one of these I have. I'd like to get another one here eventually, just to add a little variety going on. But a neat car, a neat crane to have. This one in particular I bought, and it has like the whole drive motor thing in it where you can power it and all that. And as cool as it would have been to put a decoder in there and do all that, I really didn't feel like hassling with trying to get all that apart in there and put a decoder in there. And then of course I'd need a keep alive, and I ended up pulling the gearing out of it and just made it free moving. So that way I could just kind of move it around on the layout to different places to work at and create different scenes with. But either way, a neat little deal there, something that gets out and about it from time to time, but for the most part kind of stays over here in my maintenance away area. All right, next up we have 2 oddball cars in the fleet. This would be a Walthers, or no, it's not Walthers, it's one of the Proto 1000 kit cars. As you guys can tell, I got a little crazy with the soldering iron on this one too, because I didn't know what I was doing. Apparently I have it labeled as a 791G. Don't know if that's correct or not, but I would assume it might be, because I was trying to work off of prototype photos back when I did these. But as you guys can see here, I took some old pieces of spare rail, and I took like the pieces of some spare ties, and I kind of made like tie cradles here in the middle of the hold, and stacked up rails and ties in this car just to kind of make a faux load, just to, you know, make something. All in all, I really would like to redo these eventually and make like a better few of these yellow-ended cars with better cars and better loads and all that stuff. But for now, they're just kind of hanging out here on the layout. And next up here, we have an example of Steve just kind of winging it here. If I'm not mistaken, this might be a roundhouse gondola, but don't quote me if I'm wrong on that, 'cause I don't remember what in the world it is, because this was done back when I had the original version of the O&WV, so I don't really quite remember that long ago. But this one's just got scrap rail on it, as usual, just scrap pieces from when I built the original layout and glued them in there and painted them and weathered them. It's masquerading as a G52M here, as you guys can tell from the giant decals I put on there, because, you know, I didn't know what I was doing back then. But it still hangs out here on the layout, just kind of to fill up the maintenance away area. Eventually it'll get put away and off the layout, or it might get mixed in with the train, who knows. But that's those ones. I think we got 2 more cars left to look at here. Alright, so for our last 2 maintenance away gondolas here, we have this Atlas Trainman car here that I painted and redid. This would have been around the time of some of the previous ones back when I was still working on the other layout, and as you guys can tell, we got some more scrap rail in this one. Now this one I remember specifically because I picked it up on eBay, and somebody like put little spots on the metal wheels so that way it sounds like flat spots, and really kind of neat. Cool car, one that kind of hangs out in the maintenance away area as usual. And then we have one more G46, because, you know, any of you that watch me for a long time know I can't just build one of anything. I got to build 2. So same as the previous one I showed, where I shaved the ribs off and put one back in the middle. Could do a little bit better nowadays than what I did at the time I did this, but you know, what are you going to do? In this particular one, as you guys can tell, has a turnout sitting in it that I built little holders out of pieces of scrap ties and stuff to hold the turnout in the car. But this one appears to need a little work done on the truck there, because it's falling apart. But either way, a neat one here, and another one that I've had on the layout for a long time and probably will be on the layout for a long time. Alright, so now I got all the cars back into our maintenance away area here. I'd like to conclude this video and thank everybody for watching. This has been a bit of a project doing this series of going through every freaking car on the layout, but I'm glad to get to share it with all of you out there and kind of show you guys a little bit of everything, show you some of my finest work and some of my not so great work, but it's all on the layout, so, you know, kind of show you guys a little bit of what I have out on the layout, and because some of this stuff I'm going to be putting away and swapping out with other stuff, so I kind of wanted to go through and talk about everything that's out now, and you know, then down the road we can kind of look at what's changed, what's new, what's old, etc. But as always, guys, I'd like to thank everybody for watching, and hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.